So Naomi Bly asked one further question, and this question I love. It's something that we teach in our course, and it's the optimum squat depth. So how low should you actually go in a squat? Now, there is a lot of controversy with a lot of this stuff, and there's a lot of different research regarding the depth of a squat. Now, first and foremost, it's really where do you put the bar on, or the barbell on your squat? Is it a back squat or is it a front squat, and so on? But let's just say, for argument's sake, it is a barbell back squat, okay? And it's not going to be a low bar squat. So if you're a power lifter, the bar will roll quite low on the traps, okay? It's more your lower traps rather than your upper trapezius. But if it was a traditional squat and it's sitting on your upper traps, like you would commonly see at the gym, if you go to parallel, like your typical bodybuilder squat, it depends on whether your hips go below knee crease. Now, if your hips go way below knee crease, which is a typical type of power weightlifting squat, not a powerlifting squat, your weightlifting squat, quite commonly seen in your CrossFit and so on, where you're doing it for reps over time, so you're trying to increase the rate, then that's a different type of squat. Now, if you do a squat that's above hips above knee, okay, or what we call a partial squat, that is highly recommended for rehabilitation purposes. Now, the only research that is out there that everyone agrees on is that during the rehab process for a knee injury, okay, even an ankle injury, because your ankle mobility will affect the depth of your squat, you can only go to a partial squat. Okay, any form of knee rehabilitation must be a partial squat. Now, that is the only generally accepted research out there. Now, what is it all regarding? It's all regarding the shearing of your knees. So if you go below parallel, okay, is there more shearing on your knees regarding a partial squat? Well, the fact is yes, that's a general fact. But is there more or less shearing between a parallel squat compared to a deep squat? There is a lot of controversy around this, and I've done a lot of research regarding this. I've read a lot of journal articles, and every test that they've done, they said there are too many variables. So depending on the load that the person lifted, depending on the person's genetics or genotype, depending on the environmental factors, because then they had to retest that client again or that participant again. And then they also tried a number of pool of people to get this, and they just said the numbers and the data is too conflicting. Now, this is a question that people have asked over many, many, many years, because the squat's so fundamental to any training program, let alone a strength training program. So what do I recommend with my clients? Once again, depends on their goals. The goals are the first and foremost, most important aspect of any training program. So if it's a knee rehab program, they will do an above or a partial squat, okay? If it's a typical hypertrophy training program where they're trying to build muscle mass, I will do a more narrower squat, and it will be a parallel squat. But just a little bit below parallel, that you actually get that little bit of hip flexion, rather than doing a parallel squat where you just don't go below hip knee crease. Then the last one will be the deep squat, will be for someone who really wants to obtain strength and power. However, I'm very cautious with that squat. I think a person needs to be very careful in their training age. When they're more an advanced lifter, then they can then develop into that deep squat. But for a rookie or someone with a level 1 training age, they should only go to a parallel squat until really their tendons and ligaments and their muscle bellies, okay, develop that range of motion, but also that strength, okay? Now, I mentioned, or I alluded to the fact regarding ankle mobility. So regarding an overhead squat, okay, now that's a whole different kettle of fish. The overhead squat to me is the pinnacle of mobility. If you can participate or complete a nice repetition of an overhead squat, not necessarily loaded up, even just with a broomstick, just for assessment purposes, then that is the pinnacle of mobility. Now, an overhead squat does not go to parallel. It goes beyond parallel, where your hips crease goes below your knee, okay? So what you need to aim between a 10 to 15 centimeter ankle mobility between if you put your toe towards the wall and you were to kneel your knee to the wall, you need to measure between your toes and that wall between 10 and 15 centimeters. Now, ideally, if you're a high level lifter, we want 15 centimeters of mobility. So that will affect your whole range of motion. So there are many variables in this one, Naomi. It's regarding, like I just mentioned, ankle mobility, but then we could also look at hip flexor mobility and so on. But solely in the context of your question, regarding the shearing of the knees and which is safer, it also depends on the training age, the genetics, okay, of the factor of the client as factors, so how tall they are and so on, but also what training age they are at. And the only acceptable fact is that for knee rehabilitation, that it must be above parallel. Everything else is really controversial. Thank you. So now I'm looking at a question from Christian Milgate. He asked a very good question, just out of curiosity. What is different about the new diploma course? And I'm glad someone asked something about the actual new training package, whether you're interested in the fitness industry or not. I think it's important that clients and also people who may go into the industry understand what's been happening, because most people have an affiliation with health and fitness or gyms and so on. So it does impact everyone on a global scale, and I think being informed helps us all. So in September this year, the Industry Skills Council just recently launched the new training package. Now, this is a major change in the fitness industry. Now, we're very excited over this because PT National is literally the first fitness college in Australia to deliver this new package. And it's great within the Hills District, which is even nicer. Now, the new code is 50215. So if you ever check out a code, if you're interested in these courses, there's 50213 and 50210. And there's also the SRF training package. So the main thing you're looking at is SIS, for the sport industry training package, okay, or sport and recreation, and it's 50210, meaning it's a diploma level and the year that has been released, okay, and it's 51215 because it was released in 2015. And the major push with the new training package for a diploma level anyway is that we're focusing more on personal training management or the business side of the fitness industry. It is a higher level type of training in the sense that we're leading you more into business practices. Now, that means that puts more pressure on the Certificate 4 level, which is your standard personal trainer level, because that means you must step up, because if the diploma is going more towards business and business management and human resources, then that puts more responsibility on the personal trainer to do more specialized populations and so on. Now, you may ask the question, Christian, but I really don't want to go down the business path, even though I know I need it if I'm in the fitness industry, but I still want to be an advanced personal trainer. And that's the focus that it also has. There are some advanced units in there, and it also depends on your college as well and what electives they choose to add on top of that. Now, inclusive in all of that, with the new training package, the diploma course must do 40 hours of clinical work experience. Okay, so at PT National, we have the Live Learn Fitness clinical work experience, and you have particular things that you must demonstrate or go through to show that you are competent or have the level of qualification at a diploma level. Okay, and that's obviously a higher responsibility compared to the Certificate 4, which is 40 hours, and then Certificate 3, which is 30 hours. Okay, so these are the major changes, and I would say in a nutshell, it's more about business and PT management if you choose to go down to those paths. Harry Chapman raised the question, so if you are not looking to lose much weight but wanting to tone up, what exercises and diet would be best for this? So if you're wanting to tone up, so basically tighten the body and also develop some form of muscle mass and not too much muscle bulk, it's important to understand how many exercises generally would you do, because this is a general question. So I would recommend a general training program to suit that. Okay, you can mix things up with a bit of agility, cardio, some basic resistance training, even some body weight movements, and so on. Once again, the variables are, it would depend on your level of training or your training age, Harry. But generally, what we'd like to do is start up with a warm-up. Okay, every training session must have a warm-up phase. Okay, that might be a 10 to 15 minute bike ride. It may be going for a power walk, maybe even a jog, depending if you're quite an athletic person. And then from there, you would move into a conditioning phase. So your conditioning phase is when you really get the work done. Okay, it's 70 to 80% of your training session. Okay, and it collectively adds up to 70 to 80% of your training program, okay, in that given week. And that could range from 30 to 40 minutes of some basic squats, whether it's a bodyweight squat or a resistance squat, such as holding a kettlebell or putting a barbell on your shoulder blades. That could be a form of a squat, or you may substitute it for step-ups, okay? Depending if you want to get your heart rate up a little bit more, that would be highly recommended. Once you've got that base level of training, and that's really good because it actually increases your testosterone levels as well when you do that type of base resistance training. Then from there you can move into more of an upper body movement. So when you're getting the blood flow from your legs through to your upper body, that takes a fair bit of energy to do so, and in doing that you're burning more calories, which is great. So then you might go into some push-ups or into a bench press, or maybe a dumbbell incline press if you like. That would be really good. And it also works on stability at the same time. Because ultimately, everything that you're doing is working your core. So whether you're focusing on it or not, you're always activating your core for stability and balance. Okay? Once you do that, I would move into more your limbs. Okay? So we'll go out into your arms now, okay? As opposed to just your legs. And you may choose to do some form of a bicep curl or a tricep dip. Once again, which is really good for balance. And depending on your training age, you may have a supported dip on a machine, or you may have a spotter, or you may even do it on a bench where your feet are fully supported and you feel quite secure and safe. So we've targeted our legs in a basic exercise, then we target our upper body, and then moved on to our arms. Now, the question you probably are asking is, well, Eric, how many sets and how many repetitions do I do? And this is where it becomes the client focus aspect of a training session. So what are really your goals? Now, you said to tone up. Now, a general training program to tone up would be 12 or 8 to 12 repetitions. Okay, anything less than that, you start moving more into a strength training phase. And if you go into 1 or 2 repetitions, that is solely a power lifting phase. And that's quite a dangerous phase to be working at if you're a beginning client, or if you're just starting out in the gym. So then there's the other outlier, and that is to work above 12 to 20 repetitions, or even 30 repetitions at some times in certain training platforms. So you don't really want to go that high either, because that is an overuse type of training phase if you're still a beginning trainer. So I like to recommend for a startup 8 to 12 repetitions. It's nice and safe, and it's nice enough for you to focus on that lifting phase with good form the whole way through. When you're starting out, only aim for 90% of maximum of a lift, enough that you feel comfortable enough to put the barbell back onto the rack or put the dumbbells down without needing a spotter. I think that's really important, because you're saying to tone up, you're not saying to strengthen, and that's the important part in your question. Now, what are the other type of exercises? Well, firstly, not only do you do that exercise, you must do an abdominal movement of some sort. Now, I'm always a big fan of letting your legs come up to your torso, so I like knee tucks. Knee tucks are very good because they work the hip flexors, they work the quadriceps, but one thing that's I'm very particular with that movement is you must have your toes pointing up. That's a focus of mine, because that allows you to focus on your lower abdominal wall, as opposed to if your toes are relaxed and pointing down, they're going to hit the upper abdominal wall, which most people will activate just getting on and off your chair each and every day, or even in and out of the car. So that's an area that I would try and target, because it's usually the most difficult area to target when we're talking about abdominal toning. Then from there, you got to look at, well, the number of sets per workout. So generally you want to ask yourself, okay, I need a warm-up exercise that will take at least 1 to 2 sets, and then you're going to slightly pyramid up that weight range till you get to your 90% lift. And then from there, one thing that is very effective for toning up is you like to throw in a drop set. Now, it may take you 4 to 6 sets to get to that 90% maximal lift, and then you're going to immediately strip the weights to 50% load, and then do another set of. Now, this is the only time when I'd highly recommend that you aim for that 15 rep range, okay? Because that gets your heart rate up, gets the blood pumping to the muscle belly that you're targeting, and that's how you get the muscle tone, increase those micro tears, and then that's how you get hypertrophy, which is really the key word of muscle tone. And then you will change that per workout. So you don't want to overtrain a muscle group. So the reason why I only gave you one quadricep exercise, which is the squat, because on the next day you may do a lunge. So you tone or you pre-exhaust the muscle prior to the next workout, which will be the next day. And then you might have a rest day on the third day. And then you start the process again, or if you do your research, you can add some new combinations. So what you do is you have your base movements. So you might have a leg movement, which is your foundation. Then you have an upper body movement. Now in this case, on an alternate day, let's say day 4, rather than chest, I'm going to do a lat pull down or a back movement. And on my leg movement, I will do a hamstring movement rather than my quadricep. So all you do is you pick your bases and then you substitute. It's not as difficult as people make out regarding resistance or exercise training programs, but once again, we've been doing this for a very long time, so it becomes quite natural to us. But for someone who's starting out and asking such as keywords as toning up and exercises, I would probably assume that we're slightly a beginner here, and they're very important questions, because I know a lot of people ask that, and we can't assume anything as a trainer or as an exercise professional. We must assume nothing and try to educate our clients to be independent trainers and independent in the gym themselves. So hopefully I answered your question enough, and be sure to keep them coming. So Naomi Blay asked another question regarding heat therapy or cryotherapy for recovery. So should we go hot or heat, or warm, or should we go cold ice for recovery? Very good question, actually. I'm thinking straight away about a particular client that I treat. He uses the gym, and throughout the number of years that I've seen him, his body has gone through a major transformation, in the sense that when I massage him and his rehab side of things, his body feels phenomenal. And I've seen the major changes in the last year and a half. And I actually asked him, what have you done that's different since I first met you? And he said after his workouts, he's had the chance to have the hot bath, and then he goes into the pool straight after. So having the sauna and then going into the cold water, I myself literally have noticed major transformations in his body. Now, the question is heat therapy or cryotherapy. So that's a difficult one. Research shows that there is no benefit for either one, more or less. However, there is benefit in either or. So if someone did no form of temperature therapy post-workout, then you will see major changes compared to someone or a duplicate of you that does some form of heat therapy or cryotherapy or uses the cold temperature. Now, as you know, with a lot of sports, strength and conditioning, as part of their recovery phases, they will go to the beach or go into a pool session as well. So I think it's generally accepted that yes, some form of temperature does help. Me personally, I would recommend more, ice baths and cooler temperatures, but there is also a level of discomfort associated with that. So it depends on the person or the team or the client themselves. So there's a few variables on that one, but research does show that there is a positive effect regardless of which one you tend to use. This one also reminds me of the whole, should you wear compression garments such as skins or should you not? And there's a lot of research regarding this, and it pretty much says that there is a placebo associated to this. So it's that perception that yes, it's going to heal me, but does it actually? And research actually states that no, it does not affect your rate of recovery, but a lot of people still do it because they feel that it does. And I think that's just as important. If it has that form of effect, then it's still a positive one, and therefore we recommend it. Barry Gregory asked a very good question. Hi, how many liters of water should I consume in an average day? Now, Barry, as I replied to you on the post, that's a very difficult question to answer because it has so many variables involved. So if I have my client and they say, Eric, how many liters of water should I drink? The first thing is I'll take into their height, their age, their weight, their activity, their sport, the environmental factors. So when are they going to exercise? At the time of the day when they will exercise, and so on. Now, we can actually become overhydrated when it comes to exercise. And the general rule is if you are dehydrated, you're already dehydrated way before you became dehydrated. So you want to drink continually throughout your session, but you can also condition yourself, depending on the type of sport that you train, not to drink water. So for example, if you're a high-level tennis player, you notice they only sip on water. They're not going to guzzle down water because you do not want that gastric dumping. So basically, you do not want your stomach to be filled too much with water. Okay, and it's quite an inefficient body system because if you drink really cold water, that actually takes energy to warm that water to your body temperature of 37 degrees. So we need to, if you're going to that level of athleticism, then you need to understand that also temperature of water affects, not just the amount of liters. Now, there is a lot of fluid loss relating to the type of sport, and it's very hard to give numbers because it depends on the actual client. This is a very specific question for just yourself. Okay, so if you actually give me your details, your height, your age, your weight, and what your general activities are, I can actually give you more of a ballpark figure as to what we would recommend. Okay, it's not something we would tell a client. It would just say, on these numbers, I think you would recommend. Okay, but on the general rule of thumb, we go by 8 glasses of water is great for general pops without physical activity, or if we just call it incidental activity, where you're just doing day-to-day things, going to the shops and so on. But on the flip side, you can overhydrate yourself. And we are an arid country, so we need to be reminded of that. And we do have that arid temperature, and we can become very parched very quickly. So you want to preempt that prior to it, okay? And also depending on what foods you eat, so you can eat high salty foods that will lead you more towards dehydration, as opposed to your fruits or your water-based vegetables and so on, where they will try and hydrate you on an opposite scale. But regardless, you do not need food as much as you need water, okay, in terms of our survival mechanisms. So the answer is we do need water. Liters, I cannot say straight up, simply because it is too personalized, okay? And the major factors is your own physiology, and secondly, what actual activity you're going to be intending to conduct. So that wraps up our PT podcast with Eric. I thoroughly enjoyed our first session. I think they were very good questions. They were quite wide in scope, and I looked at the different profiles of everyone, and we're covering different demographics and different training backgrounds by the looks of it, which is something that was our intention. And I highly recommend that anyone who has a trainer, that they refer these questions back to their trainers themselves. Or if you are an exercise professional and you yourself want to professionally develop, you can add this to your professional development program, because you can ask questions and then we have an active discussion. So it definitely improves where we're going in the health and fitness industry. I think it's professional learning on all paths, and not just for yourself, but also for me, because I love to know where people are heading and what is it that the general population are asking and what they are seeking, because that helps us when we're delivering our courses to our learners. I'm the Director of Learning at PT National, so I cover the teaching and assessing, and feel free to come and visit us at the Fitness Embassy. That is our new home, and we would love to see you there.